What's going on YouTube? Today we're going to pick up where we left with this challenge, Tempest. So as a reminder, Tempest is a challenge where we need to analyze a compromised machine by manually importing and analyzing Windows event logs. So in the previous video, we did the first 6 tasks. The first 4 tasks. And in this video, we're going to pick up where we left and carry over task 5 and task 6. Alright, so just to give you a basic brief on what we did in the last video. So what we did, we had, let's go to desktop. So we had 2 audit trails exported directly from Windows logs, event logs. We have sysmon logs and Windows logs. So what we did, in order to analyze the logs manually for this compromised machine, we needed to normalize the logs in an appropriate format. So right now we are doing the job of a seam tool. So the seam tool ingests and normalizes the logs when we upload them. So today, or now, what we're doing, actually we imported the logs, or we exported the logs ourselves in these 2 files, and then what we did, we normalized the logs into an appropriate format. So we have the CSV format and we had the XML format. These 2 formats are needed actually in order to be used effectively in the log analysis tools. So we have first the Timeline Explorer. Timeline Explorer accepts Windows event logs in CSV format. So what we did, we imported this CSV file here, and we have sysmon view accepts the logs in XML format. So what we did, actually we clicked on file. We can go back to the previous video to find out more about how we did that. So the findings were that there was a malicious document downloaded. So in here, if you go to task 4, we had a malicious document downloaded to the compromised machine. Upon opening the malicious document, what happened, there was a payload that got executed. The payload was in base 64, and the payload got executed, and upon execution it exploited a vulnerability in the Microsoft diagnostic tool. So that was the base 64 encoded payload that got executed. Now if you go to cyber chief here from base 64, that's the command that got executed upon opening the Word file. As you can see, if you interpret the command, it sets itself to execute at startup, and then as you can see here, IWR contacted this domain name fishteamxyz to retrieve a zip file. The zip file was downloaded to the destination path, as you can see, and the destination path of the zip file, as you can see here, it is actually under app Microsoft Windows Start Menu Program Startup. So the payload here downloaded a zip file and set another command to be executed upon startup. If you go to stage 5 here, we will tackle down the persistence mechanism of this payload. So a payload, so Word document has been downloaded. Word document, it has an embedded payload, base 64 payload, that in turn executed another command after the system starts up. So now we will find out what were the chain of commands that were executed after the Word document has been downloaded and opened. So we go to initial access stage 2 execution, and here we are presented with the questions. The first question is, the malicious execution of the payload wrote a file on the system. What's the full target path of the payload? If you go back here, we already knew after the code of this payload that there was a file downloaded from fishteamxyz and has been written to this path. So that's the full path of the file. You can see it here. Or if you want to unveil the complete path, what you can do here, we can go to the Timeline Explorer and search the file. So here we have the record for this file, and as you can see, the event ID for the file is let's go find out. It is event ID 11, corresponds to file create, and the full path you can find it here. Payload payload data 4, target file name, and this displays the full path where the file has been stored. Okay, the implanted payload now executes once the user logs into the machine, apparently from the path. Apparently from here. Judging by, where is it? Judging by the behavior, as you can see, CD to Windows Start Menu Programs Startup. So it executes a payload once the user logs in. Okay. Now, what's the executed command upon a successful login of the compromised user? Find out what's the command that gets executed whenever the user logs into the machine. That's the persistence mechanism of this payload. So let's go back here, and now we want to search for this command. Apparently it's not going to be an easy task. So the command, when it's executed, it will definitely start a process. So if we filter here by event ID equal to 1, that corresponds to process creation, and we examine the executables, let's see here. We want to look for something that's out of the ordinary, like anything that's not supposed to start when the Windows logs in, right? So I want to see what are these. Now you may see these net user. These aren't started when the Windows logs in. So we're gonna ignore these. We're going to scroll down. These are all normal processes. Let's take another look. So as you can see, there is who am I here, but it's not the correct one. Take a look at this one, final. That's an executable, but that's not this one. It's not the one that starts when that's not the command. We're looking for a command here, a pattern for a command. Take a look at this one, Windows PowerShell, right? Take a look at this file, this command. Apparently we have more than one PowerShell command here, but we want to find out the exact correct one that corresponds to, you know, command executed on the startup of the system. So also we have this PowerShell command. Scrolling up, we also have this PowerShell command. And that's it. So I have a list of PowerShell commands, okay, that are executed when the system starts. Let's take a look at the source file, at other parameters like the parent command line. As you can see, the parent command line for this one is the Explorer. Now let's take a look at the other PowerShell commands like this one. As you can see, there is no parent command line here. If we filter only for PowerShell, okay, so we have these PowerShell commands. We want to know which one is the one that executes upon the system startup. Let's expand the payload 6. Okay, great. So the parent command line is what will help us find out which one is the correct one that executes on the system startup. So if you look at these, like this one, no, this is cert utility. This one, this is PowerShell command. This is also a PowerShell command. These two are also PowerShell commands. The parent command lines for these is this one, WSM provision hosts. Okay, while the first one here, the parent command line for this one is the Explorer, and normally the Explorer is the Explorer the explorer here is the parent command line or the parent process for PowerShell. So this leads me to lean towards this PowerShell command as the correct answer. Why? Because the parent command line here includes the explorer. So you cannot launch PowerShell if explorer is not working, right? So explorer, the process here needs to be started in order for any consecutive PowerShell commands to be executed. So since the parent command line for this PowerShell command here is explorer, this is the first PowerShell command that got executed, which means it is the command that is executed on the system startup. So we double click on that and we copy it. Answer with it. Okay, let's take a look at this command and see what it does. So when the system logs in, or when the user logs in, what happens? A PowerShell command executed that will download. As you can see, it uses cert utility to download an executable called first.exe. Downloaded from this domain name, fishteamxyz, and save to downloads. And then it gets executed. Okay, so now the Word document we mentioned earlier here, okay, what in a nutshell, it's kind of a drive-by download. It's not the main malicious document, although it exploited a Microsoft diagnostic vulnerability here, and without this vulnerability, the Microsoft Word wouldn't have been able to execute this payload. Okay, so it's important to understand that this is a complex exploitation that includes public vulnerability exploitation, at the same time drive-by download. So drive-by download is that, you know, as you can see, this one downloaded further malware on the system. The further malware on the system was this binary. So this is the malicious binary. We can consider it as a backdoor, okay, but the real backdoor actually, or the thing that created the stage for the backdoor is this command. So without this command, okay, this binary here wouldn't have been downloaded to the system. So if say that the attacker stopped at this stage, so they sent the Microsoft Word document, right, and then they exploited this vulnerability. It's nothing gonna happen, right? Because this Word document is a catalyst for the original malicious binary. You will see later now, this malicious binary is the binary that executes the commands from the C2 server. So that's the real backdoor here. And the Microsoft document was only a catalyst. Okay. Going back. Alright. So now we found the backdoor. That's the backdoor that supposed to, or as we will find later, is the backdoor that executed all of the system commands and enabled the attacker to elevate the privileges and hence gain administrator access on the machine. So the next question, based on sysmon logs, what's the SHA-256 hash of the malicious binary downloaded for stage 2 execution? Find out the hash of this binary. So the binary is first, let's search for this one. As you can see, we have a couple entries here. Which one is the correct one? The one that's correct one is, as you can see, if you look at the executable info column, you will see the binary here first, and it's under its original path. From this entry or this row, we can copy the SHA-256. Starts with CE, as you can see, copy it like that, and this is your answer. Okay, the stage 2 payload, this one, the stage 2 payload downloaded establishes a connection to a C2 server. What's the domain and port used by attacker? Okay, so once again, this binary here again connected to another C2 server to retrieve commands. We want to find out what's the IP address, the domain, and the port of the C2 server. So to find this out, let's go and make our life easier. We can use testimony view here and search for the executable in question. So we have it here. Click on this one, click on that, click on the image path, and then drag all of the session GUIDs here. Okay. So these are the events witnessed, or let me say initiated by this binary. So we have 27 DNS queries, 1 file created, 27 network connections, 1 process created, and 1 process terminated. So the first DNS query that's created or initiated is this one, and it was initiated to this domain name, resolve cyber xyz. This is the IP address of this domain name, and this is the port. So it is communicating, or it's kind of downloading something from this domain name. Judging by the port, it is over 80. So that's the domain and that's the port. The next thing, we want to find out the files, commands, the things that the executable here was retrieving from this malicious domain. How to find this? We want to analyze the network traffic. So we will step to Brim here. I'm gonna open Brim and opening Brim along with Wireshark. Now let's go to the analysis part. Task 6. What is the URL of the malicious payload embedded in the document? Now let's go back and click on Hey HTTP requests. As you can see, these are all of the HTTP requests that were made. We have something, we have Fish Team, Microsoft, and we have Resolve Cyber XYZ. Now the task is to find out what is the domain name, or what's the URL, okay, embedded in the document. Which document? It's the original document, if you remember. Okay, now let's go back. Knowing that the original document communicated with Fish Team XYZ, let's filter for this domain name in order to find out what are the URL extensions requested over from the document. Fish Team XYZ. So here we get a list of all of the requests that went through or went to Fish Team XYZ from the document. So the question is, what is the URL of the malicious payload embedded in the document? So what is the URL? We have many URLs here, right? But we know that all the further executables were retrieved over Resolve Cyber. So this makes me think that the URL actually is this one, fishteamxyz /something/index HTML, and this is the correct answer. What is the encoding used by the attacker on the C2 connection? Okay, let's go back to the original view and look at all of the HTTP requests. So the C2, the encoding used by the attacker on the C2 connection. The C2 connection is the connection made when the base64 command, this one, were executed. Okay, so once executed, we said that it created another command that executes on system startup. The command was this one that executes first, or the binary called first. The binary called first made connection to the C2 server on Resolve Cyber. That's what it's meant here by saying what's the encoding used by the attacker on the C2 connection. The C2 connection that was made to Resolve Cyber. So if you take a look here at the connections made to Resolve Cyber, they're all created with an encoding, as you can see here. So along with, as you can see, /URL/9, this is the URL, question mark, let's take a little look here, question mark Q is the parameter, and this is the full string. So if you take this, it's very clear that this is base64. So we can copy that and verify our suspicions. This is the URL. We're going to remove this one and remove the parameter. As you can see, this is indeed base64, and this is the exact command that corresponds to this base64 string, net users. So what's happening here is that the malicious binary first is communicating with resolve cyber, and it is executing commands, okay, using base 64. The commands are being retrieved from this domain and executed over the machine, but all this is happening over HTTP protocol. So it's base 64. The malicious C2 binary sends a payload using a parameter that contains the executed command results. So we already said that it is Q here, as you can see, the Q over here, question mark Q. The malicious C2 binary connects to a specific URL to get the command to be executed. What's the URL used by the binary? It's this URL, /9a/9a. This is the URL over which the commands are executed. What's the HTTP method used by the binary? It is get. And lastly, based on the user agent, what programming language was used by the attacker to compile the binary? Okay, so user agent's details or information cannot be found in Brim. That's why we have to pivot to Wireshark. So in Wireshark here we can filter for HTTP get requests, and we see many requests. We want to aim towards base 64 requests. This is the first one. Now we want to expand the hypertext transfer protocol since it contains the user agent information, and from here, taking a look at the user agent field here, the value NIM or NIM, high HTTP client. NIM is a programming language used to improve compilation between JavaScript and other languages such as C. So that's your answer. Okay, in the next tasks or the next video, we're going to wrap up this challenge by going over internal reconnaissance, exploding privileges, and fully own the machine. I hope you guys learned something from this video, and I will definitely see you in the next one.